Again, this combines things that you already know. Order of operations and operations with rational numbers, positive and negative fractions, positive and negative decimals. So remember, when we do a question like this, okay, what's the first thing I'm going to do? Look at the question. What's the first thing I'm going to do? Divide. So I'm going to do this here. So what you should be doing, okay, when you do these questions, some students have a tendency to do this. Don't write this down. But if you do this, it can really create a lot of little errors. So some students may go like this and say, okay, 1.2 divide negative 0.3 gives me negative 4. And then I'm going to do this, which gives me negative 6. And then I'm going to do this, which gives me negative 6.8. Okay, that's not well organized. You want to be organized in your solution, okay? Because it's too easy to get lost when it looks like this. So what we want to do is keep everything else the same except for this. So I'm going to rewrite the negative 0.8 in parentheses. I'm going to rewrite the times 1.5 in parentheses, because I haven't touched those. What is 1.2 divided negative 0.3?
Negative 4.
Negative 4. So I just fill it in there. Now what's the next thing I'm going to do? Multiply 4 times 1.5. So I'm not touching the negative 0.8 yet. I'm not touching the minus. I'm only doing the 4 times 1.5, which is 6. Now we've got one step left. And remember, watch your negatives. Okay, don't get caught by doing 0.8 minus 6. It's negative 0.8 minus 6, which gives us
6, negative 6.8.
negative 6.8. Okay. Okay. Here's another one that involves decimals. And this is an actual conversion. Okay. In Canada, we measure temperature in degrees Celsius, but down below us, they measure in degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. And a lot of times we want to learn how to convert between the two, because I'm sure many of you guys have taken a trip to the States. And if it's going to be 61 degrees Fahrenheit outside, if you're in Minneapolis, you probably want to know what that's going to be in Celsius. That's the one I can remember. That's the one I remember off by heart, because 61 reverses 16. Yeah, that's the only one I remember, because you reverse it. So I kind of go from there. So like if it's 65, then it's, 18 degrees somewhere around. Okay. So we are given the temperature in Fahrenheit of a place in the Northwest Territories, and we're asked to convert it to Celsius. So what I want to do is I want to take this negative 9.4 and plug it in here. So I'm going to get Celsius equals negative 9.4, subtract 32, and then all of that over 1.8. Now remember, this is a different way to show division. I mean, we can show division using that symbol, okay? Or we can show it using this symbol. But when you see this, okay, this means that you've got to do everything up top first, everything on the bottom, and divide last. So I know you might be thinking, well, I divide first because division comes before subtraction. Not when we have one of these. So what is negative 9.4 subtract 32? Sorry?
41.4. Oh, negative 41.
Nice. Divide 1.8 gives us. Anybody got it?
Negative 22.
Negative 23. Are we done? What do we need?
What's that? Well,
Degrees. Degrees Celsius. Nice. Good job. Okay. Good. So that's with decimals. Okay. And remember, if you're going to be, I mean, you can use your calculator for some of these questions, but just remember, watch out for those negatives. Make sure you're punching in negatives when the question involves a negative. All right, let's look at fractions. I know some of them, they look a little crazy, especially the third one down below. Okay, but again, do it in order. What am I going to do first here?
change the negative to a positive.
What do we want to do before that? That would work, but what do we want to do? Let's think of what operations you want to do first.
Multiplication.
We want to do that. So I'm not touching this, so I reread it. Is my answer to this going to be positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative. So we've got two negatives, so as you say, we're going to change that to a positive after. And now we multiply. Remember, we can reduce before. What could I reduce?
40.
4 and 8, I could divide each by 4 to get
1. 2.
good. So I get 1 times 2 over 1 times 15. Sorry, there'd be 2 negatives there because my answer is negative. So it should be like this. So 1 over 5 minus negative 2 over 15. And of course, this changes to plus. So now it's basically turned into a fraction addition question. What do I do when I'm adding? Common denominators, which would be 15. Well, the second one is already out of 15. 1 over 5 is the same as what over 15, see? Yeah. Together? Yeah. Anything you want to do with that? 2. Why is this not working? Nice. Hold on. I want you guys to try the next one. Okay. Remember, multiplication and division, we don't do one of those first, we do whatever appears first when we read from left to right. Okay. Okay, so it looks like all of you recognize to do this first. So I'm not touching the plus 2 over 7 divide 5 over 14. Not yet. Remember, you can reduce. before you multiply, I could divide the 4 and 6 each by 2 to get 2 and 3. And remember, the answer is going to be negative. So 2 times -5 is -10 over 3 times 3, which is 9. If you didn't reduce and got -20 over 18, your next step should be to reduce that before doing this. Okay? Because you want the numbers as small as possible. Next is this. So I'm not touching the -10 over 9 yet, but I'm going to add 2 over 7. What would it be? Times 14 fifths. And again, you can reduce a pair before you multiply. 7 and 14, I can divide each one by 7. Oops. To get 1 on the bottom and 2 on the top. Multiply those two together and I get -10 over 9 plus 4 over 5. What's the lowest common denominator? 9 and 5. 45. Which means, what does -10 over 9 become? -50. 4 over 5 becomes 36. And now I can add those together, keep the denominator the same. Watch, remember, it's -50 plus 36, not 50 plus 36. So you should get -14 over 45, which can't be reduced. We're done. Oh, this last one. It looks very complicated. But remember, for anything in parentheses first, multiplying and dividing after, adding and subtracting at the end. Do you see anything to do in parentheses? This. So that means I am not touching -1/2 times -1/2. Sorry, I'll make that a little bit clearer. 1/2 minus -2 over 3. Divide. But I am adding these two. And I need common denominators, which would be 12. And I can save myself a little bit of time. What does the plus minus become? Negative. So 1 over 3 becomes what over 12? 4 minus 3 over 12. Again, I'm not touching this stuff, but I want to rewrite it to keep myself organized. And when I subtract those two, I get 112. You can leave it in the brackets if you want. You don't have to. Okay? All right, so that took a little bit. What's next? Dividing or multiplication? Multiplying, because it appears first. So is minus going to be positive or negative? And 1/2 times 1/2. 1 over 4. And I didn't touch anything else. All right, getting better. Getting easier to work with. What's next? Division. So I'm not touching the 1 over 4 minus. I have to change this to multiplication. So it'd be times 12 over 1. If I reduce, yeah, 3 and 12, 3 and 12 can go to 1 and 4. So I'm left with 1 over 4, subtract. I'm multiplying negative by positive, so it's going to be negative 8 over 1. Now remember, I was telling you guys, when you have something over 1, change it just to the positive or negative number. But I don't want to do this yet. Why? Because I still have to add. So I'm not going to change it to 8 yet. Because when I add these two, and I add these two because two minuses make an addition, I need common denominators. So what's the lowest common denominator of 4 and 1?
4.
So I don't think it's the first one. Plus 32 over 4. Now I'm finally ready to add the 2. 33 over 4. Can't be reduced. We're done. Okay? But notice all these questions, I kept it in order. Did it in as well organized manner as possible.